Welcome to the Elaborate Topics podcast, where we focus on lab-specific strategies for medical laboratory professionals. We're proud to be the healthcare detectives that work behind the scenes to get the results needed to influence medical decisions. Let's grow together and jump right into the lab.
Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Elaborate Topics. I'm your host for today's show, Stephanie Whitehead. For those of you tuning in for the first time, I'm your podcasting laboratory leader and co-host for this podcast. Elaborate Topics is a weekly podcast where myself and my co-hosts, Taiwana Wilson and Lona Small, are bringing you topics related to the laboratory and leadership that help you excel inside and outside of the laboratory environment. And I'm super excited for today's show. I want to get right into it because I have a very special guest joining me today, Miss Anastasia Penright.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me today. Hey, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. I know things have been crazy in Texas, particularly in Houston, over the past couple of weeks. So that with school starting and everything, I appreciate you making time for us in your schedule.
Of course. And I'm just like everyone else. I am getting ready for this 3-day weekend, much needed. So it's coming at a great time.
So before we get diving too deep in the show, I just want to go ahead and talk about some of your awesome accomplishments and your journey in your career so far. So, Anastasia, you're a corporate business consultant by day and a community leader by night. In addition, I read that you came to Texas by way of Louisiana, and I came to Texas by way of Mississippi. So I kind of feel like we're like Southern spirit cousins. But can you tell the listeners about your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Oh, absolutely. So, yes, I am born and raised from New Orleans, and the accent has been gone if I ever had it that strong. I think it was strongest growing up, and then in college it just started to slowly fade as I went to school up north Louisiana. But born and raised there, and as I've been growing in my career, my focus in my collegiate studies was financial services. And then as I've grown in my career now, it's been more aligned to human resources and diversity and inclusion. And so I spend a great deal of my day work helping to bring diverse talent into my organization. Now, when I first moved to Houston, it came from after Katrina. Now, I was in college during Hurricane Katrina, but my mom's company, this is before she retired, she was actually still working in New Orleans, and her company decided to shut down after all of the damages and relocate to Houston. And so that required a move. Now, because I was in college, I pretty much stayed where I was, but then once I graduated, I decided, hey, let me go join my family, my immediate family in Houston, which was, if you told me 15 years ago, like, oh, my goodness, you'll live in Houston, Texas, I would have never believed it. Because in New Orleans, we didn't go west. If anything, we would go east. Like, you're from Mississippi, I would be in Biloxi every other weekend, or we would go to, Birmingham or Atlanta. Or we go to Florida, but you don't go west. So it's really interesting that I managed to be in Houston, Texas. But it was the best thing that actually happened to me because one great job turned into a very good career. But my true passion was a lot of the activities that I did outside of my day job. Because I was new to the city and new to Houston now, I didn't know a lot of people. So what I did was to get out there and not only want to help my community, but to meet other people as well, is get out there and volunteer, be a part of organizations, and I continued to fall in love with that. I did a lot of that in high school and in college, but it really grew when I was an adult. I managed my own time. I managed my own schedule, and then also a lot of the things that I did with volunteering, it was me providing my talent to help someone else. And you're the worker, right? You're just kind of helping others. And then I started to recognize where there were different needs, like what is missing? What can I do to make an impact besides, being a volunteer is great, but not just being a volunteer. And that's when I noticed there was a lack of organizations that really helped towards financial literacy at a younger age for students and kids. And that's how you can get to financial illiterate adults, is because we don't focus on this. In middle school and high school, we're not taught a lot about checking and savings accounts and managing a budget and things like that, or how to do your taxes, or what it would be like if you owned your own business. You're simply just not. It's not a part of a curriculum you see often. And so I recognize that need. And that's how I created my nonprofit, Respect My Voice, because of it. And then I went from I still do a lot of volunteering with other organizations, but now I also have a nonprofit where I have volunteers helping me. And it's just one of the things coming to Houston, being so involved in recognizing where I can make my impact. This one thing I could do to really help my small community be a little bit better. So that's just been a long-winded way of giving you my journey.
No, that is amazing. And I came across you from kind of a 6 degree of separation. My goodness, Friday. Come on, Stephanie. 6 degree of separation situation from a mutual friend, Christine Talamonte. Shout out to Christine, because she texted me early on a Monday morning, and she said, "You have got to listen to this TED Talk, girl. Like, I've listened to it like 3 times, and it was your TED Talk from earlier this year." With almost or probably over 100,000 views by now on YouTube. Congratulations. Quite the popular TED Talk. And it's entitled 5 Steps to Remove Yourself from Drama in the Workplace. So tell me how it came about that you are on a TED Talk stage. Like, what motivated you to do that?
Oh, of course. So like I mentioned, I am a corporate professional by day, and I call it like a co-preneur because I work corporate job, but then I'm also an entrepreneur. So it's like that's the both paths of my life. And when it comes to working in a corporate environment, it's important to try to take advantages of all the resources that are provided for you. When I'm doing a lot of my entrepreneurial work, there's just some things that I simply don't have. I'm not a conglomerate. I don't have this huge budget or all these different programs. So in my corporate job, I try to take advantage of that. Now, my company did a partnership with TED Institute, and they basically were saying, look, our theme is going to be focused on ignite. It's just the word, ignite. And what does ignite mean to you? What do you ignite a passion? Do you ignite a dream? Do you ignite a goal? What is ignite for you? And that's, as much as we're giving. And we were asked to work on, if you were a part of the sponsorship that my company had with TED Institute, they were saying we will allow 13 individuals from your company to present a TED Talk on a topic that is selected by us. So TED owns all of it. Yeah, and so it was from my company, which is well over 200,000 people. We had over, we have 6,000 people that applied, and 13 were selected, and I was one of those 13. And my topic was,
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And my topic focused on workplace drama. Now, when I wrote it, it was called, when I wrote it, it was how to avoid workplace drama. And then as far as with TED, as they do it, they have a whole editing team, and they are, pros out there to do research for the better title, and they selected the 5 steps to avoid workplace drama. And it was a great writing that with the TED team, because it came across so many different people. And everything I said on that stage is absolutely true. I still apply those steps, and even the way I came to it is true. Like a group of my friends, we use this app called Glide. Actually, we don't even use that app anymore. We use Marco Polo for video messaging, but we still call it Glide because we're so used to using that Glide app. But that's how I stay connected with my friends. I mentioned before, because of Katrina, I'm in Houston. Well, that also happened with a lot of the friends that I grew up with. We're all in different parts of the country. And so we don't have where we would all meet up like we did when we were all in New Orleans. We're all in different places. And so this video messaging that we do, that's our connector. And each day we'll send a message to one another, and we're just talking. Hey, what's going on? How's life? And then we will also mention about what's going on with work. And we are in completely different industries. I work in financial services, specifically human resources, but then financial services. One of my good friends at the time was working for the local city government. Then I have one of my friends who works in the news and entertainment industry. And so these are drastically 3 different types of industries. And yet, as I could tell a story about work or they told a story at work, they would say, that sounds just like so-and-so. I had a problem with this person like that, and that person does that. So we were just noticing, like, how do we have the same stories? Like, we're doing different type of work. And then it would happen a lot. We'd have these conversations, and I said, okay, there's got to be a better way. What can we do? How can we combat this? And I would listen to them. They'd listen to me, and I was thinking of ways. And I'd say, okay, when we get to the situation, we'll do this. And then I simply just wrote it down. I never imagined that something that I wrote down for a way to specifically help me and something I shared with my friends to help them would be seen across the world, and so many people would find it relevant to what they were going through at work as well.
Well, it's a highly relatable topic. I mean, it doesn't matter really what field of work that you work in, because you're working with different people, different personality, different generations, people from different backgrounds who may or may not be going through different things. There's just the potential to kind of stir all of those background emotions together and then throw a timeline in there or a deadline in there or a heavy conversated meeting in there, and then you've got just, the right recipe for a bunch of drama. And so I found it, and I'm in healthcare, I found it actually really helpful for me, particularly with everything that we're going through in healthcare with the pandemic and everything, just really a way to refocus my mind back on balance and respect and peace in the workplace and understanding what's important and recognizing why we're all here. And so why do you think it's important for people to hear this podcast and kind of get back to what is important, the root of why you're at work every day or whatever your mission is at work every day?
Oh, that's a great question, because you have to be able to find your peace. You have to be able to do that, because if not, we're not zombies, okay, and we're not robots. And that's one thing. I actually take it. I don't take it as an insult, but I always feel the need to say something when someone says, "Well, you just need to check your emotions at the door." That truly doesn't exist, because that's what makes us human. I don't have to be driven by my emotion, but guess what? We all have emotions. If that weren't the case, almost every world war we've had was emotionally driven. Every conflict that exists comes from that. So when people say that, it's just they're fooling themselves to believe that they can just compute a decision and it not have some type of emotion. Even if, like I said, it's not emotionally driven, but there's some type of emotion. So that's one thing. Because of that, we have to know how to deal with these different personalities and these different type of people with their own emotions coming in. And we can't control what other people do. One of the things I mentioned in the TED Talk is that sometimes we put other people's expectations we put our expectations on other people, and then we get surprised or upset when they don't meet them. And that's a big deal, which is something I noticed I was doing. I felt like if I'm doing this, if I'm being nice, I'm giving you this, bringing this, I should be giving that back. I mean, that's how it works. You give respect, you get respect. That sounds great. It's a great cliche. We should all be respected, but at the same time, you cannot force anyone to treat you a certain way. And if we constantly keep thinking about all these different things, you drive yourself crazy. Your performance starts to go down. You bring your work to home, which now with a lot of us working remotely in different companies, I know it's not as much in the health industry, but there are a lot of people who are at home. And if we're bringing now work into your personal life, that can affect friendship relationships, spouse relationships with your children, because you're irritable, you're just upset, and then you start to really have this disdain for your job. So the only thing we can do is control how we deal with things, and it is not easy. It is absolutely not easy. It takes a lot of practice. It's any muscle that needs to be continually worked out. You have to be able to do that to keep your peace, or you simply won't be able to work with anyone. Because no matter where you go, that's another thing that I've noticed. The grass is not always green on the other side. Sometimes you kind of like replace one evil for another, and then you just don't know, because you're just working with people, and with people, that's what it comes with. So focusing on how can I train myself, and one of the things where I try to mention, even when I talk about taking the high road, it does not, or I started out where I say my TED Talk is about annoyances. It's not about blatant disrespect. I just want to make sure that is very clear. It doesn't mean you have to see how much disrespect you can take and you can kind of just like meditate it away. Absolutely not. Things that are true disrespect, it needs to be addressed appropriately, going to the right people. If it can't be escalated, if it's a systemic issue in your company, then really looking at the decision, is this the right company? But when it comes to annoyances, people who are just petty, just doing things, making things extra, or taking every single thing you say out of context, things like that. It doesn't truly affect your day-to-day performance, but it affects your mood. It affects how you want to interact with that person. Those things we need to learn on how to work on reacting or not reacting to. That's why I feel like this talk was very important.
I felt like that was so good. That is so powerful, because I think for so many of us, we come to work and we allow the thermostat of our lives to be in somebody else's house. And so, they are controlling the temperature of your mood every single day. And what I loved about your TED Talk is, like I said, it resonates across industry lines. And so it doesn't matter if you work in healthcare or finance or if you're a teacher. I don't want to change my mood or be smacking my teeth when you walk in the room. Like, I want to be able to be consistent no matter who comes into my space, because I'm controlling my vibe and I'm controlling my thoughts appropriately. So I don't want to belabor this anymore, because you have some pearls of wisdom that we want to give to our listeners. So I want to just get right into the TED Talk, because whether you're dealing with an annoying or petty person that you work with, or you're just having a hard time working with your team, your 5 steps to respond to drama that happens in the workplace really helps people to refocus on why they are at work each day. So I want to just get into your TED Talk. First, why don't you define drama? Like, what, some people would be like, quote unquote drama. Like, why don't you define what is drama in the workplace? What is all the unnecessary stuff that we're talking about?
Gotcha. Great question. So how I define drama for the point of this TED Talk is going to be anything that is an annoyance that is people related. So it's not a system problem where we're behind on technology or we never have enough resources to help do my job. So not that. People driven, where the people you work with are doing things out of pocket, annoying, frustrating, taking things so out of context what you're saying, being petty, that kind of thing. So that's how I'm defining drama, where it's, like I said, it's how people getting on your nerves, not necessarily the entire company. And those are things that you can truly work within yourself to fix. Things that are outside of your control or are going to be systemic issues with your company. If it, like racial issues, discrimination, or sexism, or things like that, you can't. These steps don't apply to those. Those are systemic problems. These are the things that are people driven by the people working directly with you. So that's exactly how I'm defining drama.
And if listeners are like me, and as you were talking, like 3 different faces popped in our head, like what are your 5 steps? Like, break it down for us. What should we do when we identify, yep, I've got drama with this person in my workplace?
Yes, of course. Okay, so your first step, that as I kind of go into this, and I define them by how I've been using them to kind of organize myself when it comes to like how I'm dealing with people. But I also just want to give the caveat that they don't always have to be, in that order. So, for example, as I go through them, like if you are already at step 3 and you're just like, okay, we got to go straight to step 5 or something like that. So we can, you can choose your order. Don't be set specifically each time on the order, but that's how they've been working for me. So I'll give that caveat. But step 1, rewind and reflect. That's also known as, what did I do? So at step 1, this is where you're constantly self-reflecting on what's going on. You look back at the situation and what role you played in it. And I don't want it to seem like it's like you're blaming the victim, but then you also have to realize when you're looking back at a situation where something happened, we're always going to be the quote-unquote victim of it because it's from our perspective. If it's a situation in the first place, that means something has happened to us. Or that's usually how we're looking at this, unless we feel like we hurt someone else. But you want to look at that situation and now picture it without the emotion. Play by play. What did you say? What did they say? And when you do this, it allows you to kind of play back on this, because hindsight is 20/20, where you just kind of go back and like, why did I argue with this? One thing when I do my self-reflection that I notice is that I keep doing this. I keep thinking that no matter how many times I address something with someone, that I can get a different result. Like if I just had this conversation saying, hey, this is how this should be done, this is how we can better work with each other, and then they mess up. Then I say, okay, no, this is the way we can do it. We could do this, and they mess up again. I think if I keep talking to them, they'll get it. I have to realize sometimes, why do I keep just talking about this? Either they don't get it, they don't want to get it, whatever it is. I need to recognize my part, because me continuously doing this, I'm only getting myself frustrated because I'm expecting something different after I know what has happened in the past. Mm-hmm. So those are the type of things that when you self-reflect, or if you notice that you've sent something, one is easy, like with emails, and we'll even talk about that a little bit more, but with emails, if someone sends you something that's kind of out of pocket, you can hear all the passive aggressiveness is like screaming from the email. And then you write something.
Per my last email.
Right. Per my last email, right? Moving forward, we're going to do, things like that. All of our key words we have in there. And when you see that, you have to, and you respond back to it. And then they respond back. And then you respond back. When you're looking back and you're doing your self-reflection, you have to think, why did I do this so many times? Because honestly, once you continuously go back and forth like that, it's a moment where you feel good for a second. You feel good like, oh, they're not going to just tell me anything. And then you kind of feel good for like, okay, yeah, I got them, I don't have that. But then at the end, you look just as guilty as them or just as petty. So that
you're going to have to get out of my email. You're going to have to get out of my email, because I love the reply all button. I'm sitting here, reply all, C.
Exactly. Exactly. And when you have to call out something, is you never want to just ignore something that you know could look bad on you, because if you ignore it, it's almost kind of be like an acceptance, where if they say, well, you didn't do this, and then you're like, I don't have time for you, you're not ruining my peace, I'm not even going to respond. That could seem like acceptance. But if you have to respond, actually, this was completed on this date, this date, this date. When you just respond, factual information, sharp shooting, very direct. No, hi, how are you? I always say I type in fluff. I'm like, happy Friday, or I hope you have a great day, and this, and smiley face, and like that. Certain people, they don't get that from me anymore. We're past that. It's, what do you need? This, and this. That's it. No, thank you. Here you go. Nothing. Direct. And that's sometimes how you have to be, because if you continuously get yourself into the situation, the more frustrated you will be. So the entire purpose of step 1 is to self-reflect. Not victim blame yourself, but see what part you played in it, so that way you know how to act in the future. That's where we go with rewind and reflect. Now, step 2 is come back to reality, also known as it needs to stop. This is where you and I were just talking about how you can bring all the things that you're struggling with at work, bringing that into the house, where you're just now getting dressed for work and you're just mad. I know someone is going to send me this, and then I'm going to send this back, and then we're going to have a whole fight. Or you're just allowing yourself to get amped up about something that hasn't happened. And it's not always crazy, right? You usually start from something that either just happened or you're picking back up on a situation that was just left off. Like the day before, you might have went back and forth with someone and you're expecting a response as soon as you get in. So it's not always something that you're just pulling out of the air, right? It's always something that's driven. And even with that, it hasn't happened. Because if you already know whatever's going to happen can irritate you or cause something, why sit there and make it worse by thinking about it ahead of time? Why sit there and get yourself amped up about what if they say this, what if they say this? Because as people, our imaginations are way wilder than our realities. We make it like an action-packed movie in our head,
right,
and then we get to the situation and it's a little different. So it's better if you try, and it's like you have to train yourself. I still do this. I can be getting dressed and I'm like, why am I thinking about these people? They do not live here. They are not on this mortgage. Let me stop thinking about them. I'm going to deal with that when I log in for work. But we do that. And when we do that, you find yourself going to work already irritated. And that can make a situation in itself because you're already irritated. You've been thinking about this for your entire commute on the way to work. And then when you get there, the least little thing is already just kind of driving you crazy. Even if you don't react to it, you just, you roll your eyes or you're mad or you're just kind of upset. It's because we've allowed our mind to already think of what can go wrong in the day. And
I love the fact that you said that you have to train yourself for that. That's actually a really good point because you can create anxiety and worry in your mind. And I actually had a person who gave me really good advice, and they said, that's why they call it work. They don't call it home because you're not sleeping there. You don't have to live there. You get to leave at the end of the day, so you don't have to bring those things with you. And I hope you talk about this, but, you said you do train your mind, but what if you have people, calling you when you're not at work or texting when you're not at work and kind of bringing you back into that drama? Oh, my goodness, I can't believe that happened in the meeting today. And you guys, it's in the evening, it's dinner time, and they're kind of keeping it going. What do you do when that happens?
Oh, that is just practice. I wish I had a quick switch. One of the things that I'm doing at home is that my husband, he will be that outlet. He will listen. But then at one point, he does shut it down. He was like, we need to not do this. We have our whole life at home, and you need to leave that there. And you be frustrated, get it out, and you need to just put that to the side and let's do something else. You have to focus on changing that energy. If it comes to playing with your kid, hanging out with your spouse, calling your friends, reading a great book, or go into Netflix and just fall into somebody else's drama. Like whatever's happening on whatever TV show and they're being crazy, fall into that. Some people call it guilty pleasures, whether it's cartoons, housewives, whatever it is. Fall into that. Don't, you're perfectly how you said it. Don't let work come home. Don't let that. It's home. That's why it's called that. And that should be your peace, not just physically as far as the place you live in being a peace and security. It should also mentally be your peace. You shouldn't be at home stressing and worrying about something that you're going to have to get up and stress and worry in real time when you get to the job. So you want to make sure that you are, and it's training. And it is trainable, which is good, but it is training yourself. Every time I see that thought comes, I kind of switch gears and I focus my energy on something positive that I need to get done, whether it's my personal work with my nonprofit, hanging out with my son, or like I said, falling into somebody else's drama on TV. where I'm just like, what were they thinking? And they're doing this, and I don't even think about work when I'm falling into somebody else's drama.
That's really good. Okay, step 3.
Yes. So when it comes to step 3, and hang on, let me get make sure I say it exactly how it's on there. Vent and release, also known as we need to stop. So now this, I just gave an example of with my husband. It's good to have a vent buddy at work, and this has to be someone you trust. And this has to be someone who is like your therapist, your coach, your energizer buddy when you need it, anything to you. But your vent buddy has an established relationship. This is not someone who is just happens to be with you right now. They're just, we're working on this at the same time, so we're the vent buddies right now. That's not what a vent buddy is. This is an established relationship you know you can trust. And I'll give you a little insight on one of the things that I haven't done it in a while, but this is one of the things I used to do to plant trust. To get trust. I would say something that it wasn't personal, but it was something that was not work related, and it's something if it got out to a lot of people, I wouldn't care. But I did it just to see. I said it just to see if I would hear it again from someone else. So someone that I was cool with, I'll say something. I don't know. It could be something small like, "Yeah, we're thinking about if we're gonna buy another house, maybe even move to a different city." Now, if I'm telling, and I was like, I'm just letting you know that that's just between me and you, so I'm not gonna say anything. Now, if I hear that again from somebody else, or even a hint of it or anything, because I know it's so left, it's not something that it could be possibly true at this moment right now for me or anything like that. So it's just, if I hear it again, then I know, okay, they mentioned something. They said something.
Well, you planting traps for people. Okay.
It's my way of establishing, like, okay, I can trust, because a lot of times we put that trust on people where you're like, look, don't say anything. And that's our favorite words, don't say anything. Just between me and you, between me, you, and the walls. And then we think that's a binding contract. Like, right. They're supposed to. You're not supposed to do it. But who said they felt the same way? They probably like, I'm saying this as soon as you leave. So, or they'll tell somebody else, hey, don't say anything. But, I heard this from someone else, but don't say it. So you never know. Like, once you say it, it's out. But, so that was my way of just trying to figure out, like, let me plant something that I don't care if it gets out, but it's left enough that I know it's just not true. And it can't be misinterpreted.
You have heard it here on our podcast first set of trust traps. I'm writing it in the notes. Trust traps.
Right. And that's how you define your vent buddy. But a part of your vent buddy, once you have that relationship established, you want to be able to have a conversation. Something goes wrong. Someone makes you mad. Your vent buddy is the one you can, like, explode to. I'm mad. If you got to curse, if you got to scream, you get it out. But then the responsibility of your vent buddy is that once you've unloaded all of that, because you have to get it out. It's like, I really do believe in energy, and if you don't get that out, you let it build in, and it can't even be converted because you've let it stay in. You have to get it out. And then once it's out, then you'll be able, your vent buddy's responsibility is supposed to be able to help you shift. Okay, that happened. So now what do we do? How do we fix that? Sometimes it's not like a fix where, well, we'll make sure they never do that again. It's like, how are you going to handle it when they do it again? What are you going to say? Is it ignore? Is it you don't even give them the opportunity because you'll have this? Is it redirect? Say you need to address it to this person, but whatever the solution is that gives you the least amount of interaction with that person, or being able to have a better conversation with that person. But there has to be solution-based. That's what your vent buddy should be doing. They should be having that. They should be turning that vent session into a productive conversation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My favorite steps are steps 4 and 5. So I can't wait for you to get there.
Step 4, learn a new language, aka we need to talk. Now, and I talked about with this one, I am not the type of person who I like to just pick up the phone at work. I'm almost email, send me an instant message, whatever you got to do. But the best way to call me is text me. Like, that's my work language. I use my email like a to-do list, and so if you send it to me in email, I'm checking off, things like that. Whereas opposed to a phone call, then I got to remember what I'm talking about, what we're doing, and just things like that. So that's my work language. That's Stacy's work language. You have to be able to understand the other person's work language, because sometimes drama can arise simply from communication barriers. I'll give you an example of what happened with me. Just the way I'm speaking now is just how I am. I think anybody who knows me, this is just me. And so I'm reaching out to someone, and I'm sending a message, a quick instant message. And the person, they'll answer and they'll respond. And then one day I did it again, and it was just something that came to me, because a part of my work language, when I send an instant message, it's not necessary. It might be something I need in real time, but it can also be like a quick thought. Like if you got a second, we can just talk out loud. There's a message. That's how I, Stacy, interpret it. Well, for the receiver, this person was saying when the way they use instant message is it's emergency. If you're sending me this message, you're interrupting what I'm doing, so you need a response within the next few seconds. I did not have that expectation of the person, but that's how they were receiving it. So then they reached out to me and said, I don't like how you make your emergencies my emergencies. And I'm thinking, wait, what? I was like, what emergency?
What?
Yeah, like, what? And I'm like, well, you're paying me, you're asking this, you're asking that, and this. And I'm like, well, I'm just thinking out loud. I just thought I could get your suggestion, and you're usually so responsive. Well, I'm dropping what I'm doing just to respond to you. I no idea this person was doing this. And so then that made me understand their work language. So this is what it means when I ping you, this or send you an instant message. That's what that means to you. And I had to explain, well, when I send it, this is how I'm sending it. This is my intent. And so that could have gotten ugly really quick. And for a small second, it almost did, because I didn't know where this person was coming from. Like, what are you talking about? What emergency? And why would I involve you in my emergencies? And they're like, well, apparently you do. And it could go very fast when it's simply a miscommunication. And so a lot of times, if we're seeing that, it is time to pick up the phone. Listen, what is going on? What do you need? What do you – because and I think it was Bush who said that a lot of times we judge other people by their worst actions, about a small person's worst action, and then we judge ourselves by our intent. I'm paraphrasing. I'm sure I butchered it up. But that's how we do with a lot of people. We look at how other people do stuff, and then we'll judge them for that, but then we want to be judged by our intent. Like, I didn't mean it that way. And so why can't we give them that same courtesy? And that's how you get a lot of communication breakdown. So if you understand where they're coming from, and going forward, I did not send that person instant messages unless it was an emergency. That's not how I'm with everyone else, but I know and understand their work language to know that's not what works for them. So that's the part about learn a new work language. Understand when it's time to pull up, when it's time to revisit emails. I did an example in the TED Talk where I read an email where I read it in my voice, but there's a lot of tone that can be in a lot of emails. And so it's good if you recognize that. You don't have to play off it right away. Understand the intent. All right, and I know we're getting for time, so jumping into step 5, recognizing and protecting your energy. Well, recognize and protect, also known as we need to talk. We need to take a walk. And here is the step when it's like we're done here. And when I said we need to take a walk, it's not referring to leave the organization. There are going to be times if you find yourself, if it's too much, and that's when I said going into the systemic issues, then you know that might be an option you might need to look at. But this is when it's time to walk away professionally from a person. Even if I still have to work with you, it doesn't mean I have to engage past that. I always use this where I was like old school New Orleans when your aunts and your mom, they would kiki with one another, joking and laughing. And I always say, look, I don't kiki with you. what do you need, what you need from me, what I need from you, and that's it. And that's as far as that interaction will go. And it's just, it's unfortunate because it's not like I am with everyone else. And you do want to have good relationships at work. But this is one step that I have to constantly remind myself, and I have to constantly remind my circle of trust, is that we have to acknowledge and we have to accept when you cannot change someone else and they don't want to change what they're doing, and you need to start accepting them for what they are, and then we need to adjust ourselves accordingly. So that means I no longer need to interact with you. That means we can't be friends. We don't kiki. We don't speak past whatever we're working on. And that's what we have to accept, because I guess because we're relationship type creatures, we want to have a good relationship. We want to make this work. There are people who just don't. Whether it's a conscious bias or an unconscious bias, whatever it is, they don't want to be able to work with you peacefully. And you cannot let that interrupt your peace. You have to accept them. This is who they are, and be able to walk away.
I like this one because I think one of the main mistakes that I see when I'm coaching somebody or mentoring somebody, and those are two different things, people, on just challenges they're having in the workplace, are that people see things at work through the lens that they see things in their personal life. So it's black or white, or it's right or wrong, and they use things like, I like this person, or I don't like this person. And I always have to go back to, those are liking somebody, not liking somebody. Those are tools for your personal life. But in order for you to be able to be effective at work, you have to grow in your ability to have public relationships with people that you wouldn't necessarily deal with privately. Like, if this were any other stratosphere in my life, no, I wouldn't be going to Cold Stones with you. But, because we are here in the same building, on the same 8-hour work period, working on the same project, I do have to deal with you. So I think this one is so poignant and so effective, and I think the more people are able to grasp this one, the higher you'll be able to go and the further you'll be able to go at life, because to the capacity of which you can deal with diverse individuals on a professional level and not make it super personal, I think the more successful you'll be. And like you said, letting go doesn't mean that I have to accept a person's behavior. It just means I know what it is, and that I choose to manage my professional self accordingly. I'm not going to try to control it. I'm not going to try to fear it. I'm not going to try to struggle with it. I'm just going to work within who I know you are at work and get through my project.
Absolutely. And I always tell a lot of people in my circle of trust, when you think about if you were giving somebody an expensive gift, like if it was like a bracelet at Tiffany's or something really nice, right? You don't just give that to anyone. You don't. You don't give that to someone you're simply working on a project with. No. They'll get something that was like $5 and below at Target if you have to do something within your team. But it's not something big. You have to think of yourself as that gift. When I'm around people or the friends I have, not to sound egotistical, but that's a gift. And I look at it with them. You don't have to be my friend. I don't have to be your friend. We're choosing this. And when we're trying to make these people want to be around us, you're basically forcing them to accept your most expensive gift, which is you. Not everyone deserves that. They don't all get to have that. So you have to really look at yourself like that, where it's not just, they didn't accept me. Well, they didn't. You didn't accept this gift in me. I'll give you an even better one, my distance. Whatever works, we keep in peace. But look at yourself as that. You're not losing out. You're gaining more of your time to get to the positive relationships you have.
I love that. I think these are, like I said in the beginning, pearls of wisdom, and to the extent that an individual can embed this and operate within these 5 steps, to me, the further your goals, in your professional life. What do you think listeners can do that are taking notes right now? What advice would you give them to really embed this into their daily routine and incorporate these 5 steps into their professional lives?
Oh, definitely. Every time, right now, if you're at home or you're at work and something is irritating you, or if you're just really upset with an individual, start with step 1, the self-reflection, looking back at it. If you've had countless interactions with someone and you know we're just not connecting, maybe it's time for you to look at understanding each other's work language. And if this has been going on for far too long, you've tried everything. You tried to, their work language. You've tried to, to best of your knowledge, communicate with them. You've adjusted yourself. You've taken ownership of what you've done, and you've just done everything. Then now it's time to start at step 5. You need to just know it's time. We need to take a walk. So look at where you are. If you're about to have like you're mad and you need to get out with your vent buddy, start today. Start with get it out, and then before you even go in, I always say this, like, look, I'm mad. I'm just about to go off right now. Get me back, but let me get this off my chest. And I set that expectation with my vent buddy. And my vent buddy, luckily, she's like on top of it. She knows. She's like, all right, get it out, and then I'm going to have to get you together. Or she'll say, oh, we're going to have to get this other person together. Whatever it is, we know that expectation with one another, and start today. Start today with your vent buddy. So no matter what step you need to begin at, but you can start right away incorporating that into whatever you're going through.
This has been amazing. Anastasia, tell our listeners how they can reach out to you. If you have people who are just like, I need more of this, I need to, be on this bandwagon and follow this train where it's going, how can listeners reach out to you?
Absolutely. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Anastasia Penright. I believe I'm probably the only one on there, so easy to find. And then also on Instagram, Anastasia Penright. So I'm on pretty much every social media platform except TikTok, so it would either be directly Anastasia Penright or Anastasia_Penright, but either way within that search, you should find me.
I thought I was the only person in the world not on TikTok, but you know what? We will be non-TikTokers together.
Right.
What advice would you have for our listeners as a final thought leaving? Do you have apps that you use or resources or books or podcasts or websites that you have as recommendations?
Oh, definitely. One of the podcasts, I'm falling in love with that. It was easier to do when I had a commute, but now I actually take a few minutes and I pause and try to do a few more podcasts, or I'll have them on in the background while I'm working. But one of them is a lot of meditation ones that are focused. There's one that's called The Balanced Black Girl that I listen to pretty often, and as you can see, as I talked about energy a lot throughout my TED Talk and even today, I do believe in that. I mean, I've seen it work where you can be mad, you have an argument with someone else, and you're trying to make them mad, then they get mad, then all of a sudden you feel better. And even though the situation wasn't resolved, but it's like you passed over that energy. So I do believe you can pass it and you convert it, whatever it needs to be. So my advice would be really listen to a lot of meditation podcasts that focus on how to center yourself and balance that energy and convert it to positive.
Great. Well, for our guests, thank you for our listening audience for tuning into the show with our special guest, Anastasia Penright, and her talking about her TED Talk, 5 Steps to Remove Yourself from Drama in the Workplace. If you like what you've heard and you want to listen to our previous shows, please subscribe at directimpactbroadcasting.com. Remember to email us at elaboratetopics@directimpactbroadcasting.com to listen to more topics on topics like this or to hear more guests on our show. You can always follow me at Stephanie Whitehead on my social medias, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And please tune in next week to hear more amazing episodes from Elaborate Topics. And until then, have a great day. Thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Elaborate Topics, where your hosts discussed relevant strategies for laboratory professionals. Please subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and listen to us on directimpactbroadcasting.com. Stay tuned for another episode with information you can use to excel in your laboratory career.